And then what we do is, with Carl Gould's background with 7-Stage Growth Advisors, he's got an international company. He's been around for many years, very successful. We then introduce business consulting, business coaching to Smashing Numbers. We do wills, estate planning. We've got people as an ancillary service for that. So basically, if you imagine like a Walmart, Smashing Numbers is a one-stop shop, because what happens, a lot of accountants or CPAs, when I was 7 years of age, Rod, I created my first business called Rent a Kid. I'd go out and knock on doors, and I would shovel sidewalks and driveways in the wintertime. I'd cut grass, I'd rake leaves, I'd clean swimming pools and hot tubs, walk dogs. And I was, by 9 years of age, hired my two best friends. Now I'm 52 years of age today, and those two best friends when we were 9 years of age, we're still great friends to this day, because I'm a relationship person. I believe being relational versus being transactional. When people ask me questions all the time, one of the things I share with people, I said, look, I have a burning desire of hunger inside myself, but also I've overcome a lot of rejection, a lot of adversities, a lot of setbacks, a lot of failures, a lot of challenges. And that's why I'll use hiking as a metaphor. So just like yourself, we have to qualify our time, we have to protect our time and buy back our time.
Hello and welcome to the How to Exit podcast, where we introduce you to a world of small to medium business acquisitions and mergers. We interview business owners, industry leaders, authors, mentors, and other influencers with the sole intent to share with you what it looks like to buy or sell a business. Let's get rolling. And now a moment for our sponsors. Sponsored by DuDilio. Looking to buy or sell a business? Assembling the right team is essential for success, and that's where DuDilio comes in. DuDilio is the go-to platform for hiring top M&A service providers, including attorneys, deal advisors, and due diligence experts. With a network of over 250 highly vetted professionals and boutique firms, they connect you with the expert you need for a seamless M&A journey. Whether you're acquiring your first business, growing your portfolio, or preparing for a sale, DuDilio makes building your deal team easy and efficient. And best of all, their matching service is completely free. Visit dudilio.com and assemble your winning team today. I want to highly recommend you get Acquisition Aficionado magazine. Every month, Acquisition Aficionado magazine brings you tactics for business buying and selling you won't find anywhere else. Learn firsthand from industry leaders who share their success stories, featuring in-depth interviews and stories from leading figures in the business acquisition industry. This multi-platform mobile magazine speaks to acquisition entrepreneurs wherever they are in the journey. And I want you to visit acquisitionaficionado.com today. Hello and welcome to the How to Exit podcast. Today I'm here with Darren Jacklin, and he is a serial entrepreneur, author, mountain climbing hiker, philanthropist, just a all-around good guy. And I want to thank you before we get started for taking your time to be here today. I know you're a very busy human being.
I'm grateful to be here. Any way I can make a service and difference in people's lives, I'm here to be in service.
I actually love the title of your book. It's been I read it when it first came out. It's been a long time, but it's like Until I Become. It's like that act as if type of there you go. And I really believe in that structure. I believe that when you act as if, or until you become, you'll see opportunities and stuff. Thank you for putting that out in the world, and tell the world a little bit about yourself, because not everybody knows you've been on the show before, and they may have not seen it. So let's just start with your origin story. Kind of, who are you? Where did you come from? And,
sure. Actually, I'll give some context to my backstory, come up story, and success story, because people, when they Google me and do research now, they see all the wins and all the success, but they don't see the adversities, the failures, the challenges, the setbacks. So I'll take people right back to when I was young. Failed grade 1 of public school, misdiagnosed with a learning disability and a reading disability, and I was determined by the public school system that I was unfit to attend regular public school. So they had a family meeting with my parents, and they said that Darren is, this kid, he's not a normal kid. So what they decided to do was to put me into what we call special education classes. So from grade 1 all the way through to grade 12 of public school, I was in special education. So I never went to regular public school. When I was 7 years of age, Rod, I created my first business called Rent a Kid. I'd go out and knock on doors, and I would shovel sidewalks and driveways in the wintertime. I'd cut grass, I'd rake leaves, I'd clean swimming pools and hot tubs, walk dogs. And I was, by 9 years of age, hired my two best friends. Now I'm 52 years of age today, And those two best friends when we were 9 years of age, we're still great friends to this day because I'm a relationship person. I believe being relational versus being transactional and building relationship equity with people. So all the way through junior high school, I was very entrepreneurial, doing different businesses, different jobs around my community. And when I got into high school, I was taken out of class in grade 11 by a guidance counselor and a high school teacher. They walked me down to the guidance counselor's office and they took me in a little room and they sat down. They said, Darren, if you graduate from grade 12, if you graduate, what do you plan to do with your life? And I said, I want to make a lot of money. I want to have a lot of fun. I want to make a big difference in the world. Now, money to me was not about making money of showing off. I wanted money to give me options, give me freedom, and to solve big problems and serve people and make a difference in the world. Because ultimately, I want to be a philanthropist, which I am today. And when I said all these things, they looked at each other in this little room and they looked and said, Darren, listen, let's just be straight with you. You're not going to ever go to college. You're never going to go to university. You barely are going to pass if you do high school. And kids like you are what we call throwaway kids. Now, if they said it today, there'd probably be a lawsuit, right? But this is back many years ago. And they said, you're not probably going to graduate from high school. And I said, I don't really care. I can just hire smart people. Because when I was a kid knocking on all these doors, I grew up in a middle income neighborhood, but I was going around all the rich areas because I figured they had the money, right? Who's got my money? And so I'd go knocking all these doors where all the bigger houses were and the bigger yards. And it was just more work for me to do. And so what I discovered was that when I left high school, I was really depressed, very low self-confidence, a lot of negative self-talk. And I had this fear of not being good enough, not being smart enough, not being worthy enough. And because of those limiting beliefs and lack of self-confidence, I had no direction, I had no focus, and I had no purpose. So because of my mental health, I actually did multiple suicide attempts to end my life. I used to practice and visualize and premeditate, Ron, driving my car at 85 miles an hour, 140 kilometers an hour towards telephone poles. And I did this over a period of time. And on my final suicide attempt, because I was in so much pain and childhood trauma, that I stopped the car and I said, I can't do this. And I got really, really scared. So I drove to a 24-hour crisis line that did suicide prevention. It was a telephone number you could call 24/7, 365 for suicide prevention. I rang the door buzzer and I said, I'm trying to commit suicide. I need help or I'm going to kill myself. And so they brought me in and offered me counseling. And this is back in the early 1990s. And from there, one of the counselors then introduced me to Dale Carnegie back in the early 1990s. I didn't know who Dale Carnegie was. He wrote an international book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. Well, there was a Dale Carnegie training program, a 12-week Dale Carnegie training development program. So I signed up at this hotel and took this program. And it transformed my life, like it gave me a whole different view of life because our environments are stronger than our willpower from my practical experience. And so when I was in an environment where people were succeeding and thriving and doing better than me, I just automatically gravitated towards that because proximity is power. And so through Dale Carnegie training, I met a lady who actually introduced me to Toastmasters International. She brought me out as a guest. I became a member of Toastmasters International, spent 11 years in that organization, transformed my life. And I got trained and developed in public speaking, leadership, and communication. And through Dale Carnegie training, through Toastmasters, I ended up getting a job as a telemarketer. And I was dialing for dollars. I used to make 400 cold calls a day, 2,000 cold calls a week, outbound sales calls, all across Canada, selling magazine subscriptions for Maclean's magazine, a big, large magazine here in Canada. And after 7 months, I was the number one telemarketer in all of Canada. And I had a 98% rejection rate, right? 2% conversion rate. And my boss came to me, Glenn, he said, Darren, listen, this is a dead end road. I suggest that you give your 2-week notice as an employee and you go off, and I think you should start a corporate training business. Now, this is back in 1994. And I said to Glenn, I said, listen, I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I need this money. I got to pay my bills on time. And he's like, Darren, you're never going to go any further here. Telemarketing. You can only make so many phone calls in a day, close so many deals over the phone. But I think in terms of serving people, you should do this. You've got a gift. You've learned a lot in Dale Carnegie and Toastmasters. So I took that leap of faith from Glenn, my supervisor, my manager, and I went ahead, gave notice, and I started a corporate training business in 1995. And I got a stack of telephone books from the telephone stores, the bricks and mortar locations back then in those days. And I went through the white pages and the yellow pages and the blue pages of the telephone books, making 400 cold calls a day, 2,000 cold calls a week. Check this out, Ron. From 1995 to the year 2000, I made over 100,000 outbound cold calls. Over 100,000. Some months I was 3 months behind on paying my bills because I had outrageous phone bills.
Let's say back then you had to pay by minute.
100%. Oh yeah, completely different. Like so when I was commission based, like I only eat what I killed, and I was calling a lot of companies and a lot of rejection. And so what happened was I ended up going bust. I ended up getting my car repossessed. I ended up getting an R9 credit rating, which is the worst possible credit score you can get in North America through Equifax or TransUnion Credit. I wrote bounce checks. I owed everybody money. I had no integrity. I ended up becoming homeless, living on the streets, lived in a treehouse for a period of time, lived in an apple orchard. And what happened was I was upside down being choked out financially. And everybody's telling me, go get a job, go work for the government, go work for the union, go work in a factory. Friends and family, everybody was laughing at me. And I said, no, I got to win. Like I was terrible in school. I was terrible. I was clumsy in sports. I was not good. I was very clumsy. I said, I need to win. Business needs to become my sport. I need to persevere. I need to get mentally tough. And so I took massive, consistent action, even when I was financially broke, sleeping on the streets. And I ended up building a very large international corporate training business from 1995 to the year 2015. I ended up traveling around the world multiple times. I ended up training and developing over 1 million people in live events. And I had 157 of the Fortune 500 companies as clients, paying clients that wrote checks and paid me to come in and do corporate training seminars. Well, in 2011, I was flying from San Francisco to New York City on United Airlines, and I was writing down goals. I've got over 7,000 written goals for my life. And I wrote down that I want to get on to paid advisory boards and paid boards of directors of public and private companies. This is in 2011. I also want to get knighted as Sir Darren Jacklin because Sir Richard Branson's one of my mentors and one of my heroes, one of my role models, somebody I just inspired by. Well, the next year, I went around to a lot of people across North America, and I was sharing, like, I want to get on to paid advisory boards, paid boards of directors. And everybody's like, Darren, you don't have an MBA, you don't have a PhD, you never went to college, never went to university, you barely passed public high school. Dream on, buddy. Start drinking the Kool-Aid. It's kumbaya. It's never going to work. Well, in 2013, an ultra-high net worth family here in Canada called me up. My primary home is in Vancouver, Canada, here where I live. And they called me up here in Vancouver and they said, hey, we're in the discovery process right now of this startup residential real estate company based in Bellingham, Washington, USA. And would you fly back, meet with the family? We're interviewing the founder of this company. We're in the early process of discovery. Then we're going into due diligence on this company. And with your years of corporate training background and persevering and overcoming adversities and challenges, you've got a different set of eyes in terms of the discovery and due diligence process. We want you to be part of our team. So I flew back on my own financial expense, Ron, which then more people laughed at me and criticized me. It's like, what are you, crazy? Why doesn't this ultra high net worth family pay your travel expenses? Like, you're volunteering your time. Two things I wanted. Number one, I wanted a seat at the table. When I'm around people who are more successful than me that are ultra high net worth, listen, I want to be in their inner circle. I want to have a seat at the table. Second thing is I want to be in the conversation. Because in my international book, Until I Become, one of the strategies I talk about is that all we are is a network of conversations as human beings. We're a network of conversations, and opportunities get created inside a network of conversations. So I realized that if I don't have money, that's not a money problem. That's a thinking problem. Then I need to go out and have more networks of conversations with people, and through a network of conversations, opportunities get created. So I spent about 7 months volunteering my time for this ultra high net worth family. After 7 months, it was decision-making time through the discovery and due diligence process. They said, okay, Darren, we need to have your say in this. What do you think? Should we write the check and get involved? And I said, you know what? I believe in this founder. He's an incredible person. He's got great high levels of integrity. He's a visionary. And I think you should get involved and write the check for this business. I don't understand this thing about not having bricks and mortar real estate, business, but this virtual world is different. This is back in 2013, right? So anyways, what happened was they ended up getting involved in the company, and they came to me and they said, we want you to become the first independent board of directors member of this company. It's a startup company. They got no money, so they can't pay you, but they'll give you stock or equity in the company. And we were going to go to the OTC, over-the-counter stock, right? Penny stock. So everybody's laughing at me saying, Darren, listen, these certificates they're going to give you, these paper certificates back then, the certs, aren't worth they're just slaving you. You're wasting your time. It's a shiny object. Everybody's laughing at me. So I ended up saying yes, because I thought, well, this ultra high net worth family is writing the check. They're voting with their money. So I said yes. So I, from 2013 to 2023, I served on the board of directors of this little company called EXP Realty, EXP World Holdings. And I helped take that company as a team member, as the first independent board of directors member with Glenn Sanford, the founder, and Jason Gessing, our CEO at the time. We took that little company with a team from a startup, when I joined just less than a couple hundred people in the company, to 87,000 licensed real estate agents in 24 countries on 5 continents, to a multi-billion-dollar company. And at the time was the fastest growing residential real estate company in history of the world. And I ended up having the opportunity to go to NASDAQ not once, not twice, but 3 times during the closing bell in New York City. And our first day of trading back in 2018 with EXP World Holdings, EXPI, we did over $1 billion market cap on our first day of trading. So that turned a lot of heads and a lot of visibility, a lot of exposure I started to gain, and I started to give a lot of credibility. And so I started getting a lot of doors open up, a lot of seats at a lot of different tables. And, I became very successful through working with EXP, and I'm very grateful for them. And I served 10 years on their board of directors, which is an incredible time in history. And today I serve on multiple paid boards of directors of public and private companies around the world. I'm being headhunted constantly for my knowledge and what I've done, not only with corporate training, but with the board and stuff. So what happened was, fast forward today, now we're in 2025, I have the Darren Jacklin group of companies. So I'm invested in multiple different companies around the world, actively and passively. I have a large single family real estate portfolio that you know of across North America. And I'm involved in real estate. I have an international bookkeeping, accounting, tax planning firm called Smashing Numbers. We're doing a roll-up strategy right now. We're acquiring 22 more acquisition targets across the United States and Canada over the next 4 years as a roll-up to build it in $50 million of annual recurring revenue with ancillary services. And so I spend majority of my waking hours today. I hike almost every day of my life. I go to the gym 6 to 7 days a week now, because I used to be fat and overweight and addicted to fast food and processed foods. And full disclosure, I used to spend about $2,000 a month at McDonald's, eating fast food at McDonald's restaurants just a few years ago. And so in 2023, I summited Mount Kilimanjaro at 19,340 feet in elevation, because a buddy of mine challenged me, and I took 1 year to train, develop myself, and get into high performance shape to do that. And so today I spend time within the Darren Jack group of companies. I work on the businesses, not in them. I have a team of people that work with me. Tatiana, the love of my life, is our chief operations officer. And so we're involved in bookkeeping, accounting, tax planning, real estate, and we're involved in multiple other assets as well. And then we have our own international foundation called Link Foundation. We build schools, and we're committed to building 100 schools around the world, which we're on track to doing now. And because I struggled early on in my mental health with depression and self-esteem and anxiety issues and not being good enough and smart enough and childhood trauma, I, in 2022, got knighted by the royal family out of Spain, the Royal Order of Cappadocia, with His Royal Highness. And I became one of 24 people in the world to actually be knighted as Sir Darren Jacklin, one of 2 Canadian citizens at the time. And so when I got knighted, I made 2 public global declarations. Number 1, to be a global ambassador for mental health awareness. And number 2 was to be accountable and responsible with a high performance team to building 100 schools around the world over a 10-year period to help alleviate poverty, provide access to clean drinking water, food security, and education. So one of the things that we do today, which is my passion project, which I volunteer my time with, is take a hike, build a school. So a great networking, people want to network. They want to meet a lot of 6, 7, 8, 9-figure level people. You want to be around business owners, entrepreneurs. You want to raise capital. You want to do joint ventures, strategic alliances. You want to do mergers and acquisitions. Register at hikingfundraiser.com. Come out and hike with us, because you will not only take care of your mental health and your physical well-being, but the thing is, see, you and I can go meet at a coffee shop or a restaurant, and we can have a conversation. We can go play pickleball, play golf. But you see, the great thing about hiking is, number 1, you're out in nature, which most people suffer today. See, research shows that 90% of people spend the majority, probably not 90%, human beings around the world spend 90% of their time indoors today. Only 10% outdoors. Most people live in concrete jungles today, major cities where they suffer from nature deficit disorder. So what I did is I thought, how do I become more efficient and more effective and more leverage with my time? So why don't I take people on hike trails that I want to spend time with and want to do business with, where we do millions of dollars a year of business deals, money changes hands. And why don't we go out hiking? Because when we take people hiking, there's an authenticity and a vulnerability that come out. People take off their social mask and they're authentic and vulnerable and transparent with you, which I really like. And we have more depth conversations rather than talking about the news, the weather, the sports, and traffic. And so today we raise money through our hiking fundraisers. People go to hikingfundraiser.com and they get a tax receipt and they come out across North America and they meet like-minded people in our community. And then from there, we build schools around the world, which people can go on humanitarian projects and humanitarian trips to do stuff with. So I spend time within the Darren Jack Group companies and with Link Foundation and our Take Hike Build a School events, and then serving on paid boards of directors and advisory boards of companies internationally.
It's interesting. Do you believe that your early on educational thing where they put you in special ed built some of that resiliency that you
Absolutely.
have? I relate to it in the fact that when I was young, I had a speech impediment. When I was really young, I actually, back when we were, when I was born in '72. I'm 53 in a few weeks here. When I was born, I was a little knock-kneed, so they put me in corrective shoes. And then when I began to speak, there were certain vowels and stuff I had a hard time with. So I ended up in speech therapy. And I ended up in speech therapy, which was in the special ed department of the school.
Wow.
So for 2 hours a day, every day, through kindergarten all the way through fourth grade, when I finally kind of graduated from it, I had to go spend 2 hours in special ed. And it caused a bullying scenario. Mm-hmm. So, right, people would pick on me because they thought I was a special ed student. So you build this, like, I'll show you mentality.
100%, right? Absolutely.
So
There's this hunger, right?
Right, this hunger, this, like, I've got something to prove to the world. And it's funny, is like, I've been on stage now, and I run a podcast. Like, the kid that through fourth grade was in speech therapist because if he said the word truck, it sounded like a vulgar act because it sounded like the F word, mm-hmm. Right? That said, there's a few words I couldn't say very well. There's something to being told you somebody putting a label on you. Absolutely. At a young age when you go, I'll prove you wrong, yeah. Right? So I think there's some and there's something to growing up either lower class or middle class family where there was struggle that makes us and I'm nowhere near where you're at right now, but to make us where we choose our own path and nobody can define anything Absolutely. For us. Yeah, I think all too often if somebody grows up in a cushion lifestyle, a sheltered lifestyle, it's more to their detriment than it is to their advantage.
Oh yeah, I look at people today, and people will. I travel, I speak a lot. People ask me to speak at conferences and conventions all the time, which I love to do. I love to make a difference and serve people. And I'm very practical, very results oriented. So I'm not a motivational guy. When I go in there, I structure and systems and strategies and processes and what you do to execute to measure results. And when people ask me questions all the time, one of the things I share with people, I said, look, I have a burning desire of hunger inside myself. But also, I've overcome a lot of rejection, a lot of adversities, a lot of setbacks, a lot of failures, a lot of challenges. And that's why I'll use hiking as a metaphor. So just like yourself, we have to qualify our time, we have to protect our time and buy back our time. So I used to say yes to a lot of, lunch meetings and dinner meetings and 15-minute coffee meetings and virtual meetings. I decline most of those today. My team says no. So what I do is, like here in Vancouver, I had 16 people through LinkedIn Messenger reach out to me in 1 week, want to get on my calendar and want to meet with me in person. Some want to pitch and sell me, and they're raising capital and they want to pick my brain. So I invited all 16 people to a beginner hiking trail. 11 people showed up. And it's really interesting when you take people hiking and you have a little bit of elevation. You see, people can exaggerate, they can embellish, they can play a big game, they can cover up image and ego. But when you're out hiking and people start to sweat, people start becoming authentic and real with you and start sharing with you different things that really start going on. And that changes everything. So when we started doing Take Hike and Build a School, which is really cool, was I would bring people out as a filter as part of discovery and due diligence. The people that wouldn't come out, then we would just eliminate them. So the thing is, it just wasn't the best and highest use of my time, right, in terms of vetting people. And so I learned a lot about that early on, which is so important and so powerful. And so one of the things to look at is the more successful you become, the more you want to qualify and protect your time. And I'll give you an example. Years ago when I was raising money for a startup company that I was involved in, I was desperate. I was financially broke. I was struggling. I borrowed money for my travel expenses. And so I flew into this city, staying at a really cheap Holiday Inn hotel because they had a free continental breakfast the next morning. And what happened was I had no money for the taxi cab or the public transit to go to this guy's office who was a accredited high net worth investor. So what I do, I lied. I called from the hotel phone, right? And I called this guy up at his office and said, hi, there's massive rush hour traffic right now. I can't figure out where your office is. I need you to come to the hotel and I'm going to buy you breakfast, which complete lie. And what happened was this guy's like, well, I thought you were going to come to the office. We had a 30-minute meeting. And he's like, okay, I'll come. I've got to go against traffic. So he comes to the hotel. I bring him into the hotel lobby at the Holiday Inn. And it says for registered hotel guests only. It says it all around the hotel. He sits down and I realize I got 30 minutes. So I better start pitching and selling this guy, Ron. So I lunge into like a sales presentation, high aggression, pitch and sell the guy. But 90 seconds into this, the guy looks at me and goes, Darren, shut up. Stop talking or I'm going to, almost like he's going to punch me in the face or I'm going to walk out. You're never going to see me again. And he goes, listen, let me ask you a couple questions. How much money you got in your pocket right now? Of course, I want to look good, image ego, right? Pound my chest. I'm like, I'm doing well. He goes, really? I bet you're broke. Because you're coming from desperation. You're coming from fear and lack and scarcity. There's no abundance, there's no prosperity in you, and I can feel your energy because behavior never lies. And he said to me, he says, tell me the truth. He said, you told me you're going to buy me breakfast? Why does it say around the signs here in this place for registered hotel guests only? And he goes, second thing is you had no money to come on the bus or public transit or a taxi to come to my office. That's why you asked me to come here. Is that correct? I'm like, yeah. He goes, I'm not going to write you a check today for $50,000, but I'm going to give you a piece of advice before I walk out this door. He said, stop pitching and selling people who are doing better than you because you repel them. He goes, rather listen and ask questions and start to educate and inform versus pitch and sell. He goes, when I walked in and you started pitching and selling me, I just want to run away from you and never see you ever again in my life. You sit down with me and get to know me and like me and trust me and build rapport with me and become curious about me and find out about me through a process of relationship building and build relationship equity, then I'll have an interest in you. But I have no interest in writing you a check today. But he said, stop pitching and selling and start educating and informing. When he left, that day changed my life, Ron. I was in my late 30s and I realized I was flat broke. I was up and down financially and my life wasn't working for me. And what I did was I reached out to a couple people and I said, what's my blind spots? Like, why isn't my life working? And one of my mentors said to me, he said, Darren, can I just be straight with you? He goes, stop lying to yourself. Because you're lying to you, and therefore you lie to everybody else. You embellish things, you exaggerate things. He goes, you inflate things, you rah-rah things. He goes, stop it. He goes, if you will change, everything will change for you. So at age 38 was a defining moment in my life where I killed off my old self of who I was. This guy who would exaggerate things, who would lie about things, who would embellish things, because I was that kid who was not good enough, not smart enough, not worthy enough, never going to amount to much. I'd walk into, when I used to go to seminars, I remember Tony Robbins seminars in the early days, I would go to seminars and I'd put people on a pedestal and put myself in the pit because I looked at them saying, well, I'm not like them. I don't live in neighborhoods like them. I don't drive cars like this. I don't have clothes like them. I don't have a watch like them. I don't have any of that kind of stuff. And so I'd put myself in the pit and put them on the pedestal. And I would go to a seminar and I'd leave freaking depressed and more defeated. Because the guy would get on stage talking about their successes. And I'm thinking, man, I'm just trying to figure out how to pay my freaking bills on time. Because I'm living panic. Like there were times, Ron, in my life where I wasn't even living paycheck to paycheck. I was living panic to panic. Like I don't know if people can relate to that, living panic to panic. Here I am living in a first world country in Canada, and I don't know where my next financial dollar is going to come from. Like I'm that freaking scared. And so what happened was, after age 38, I took massive action to get my money right and to focus on integrity, because I had no integrity. And you know, I have an integrity coach today. I actually pay money for an integrity coach. I actually take integrity training courses. So I get a chance to look at myself in terms of where am I out of integrity? Because what I discovered in my own life, Ron, If you don't have integrity, you don't know you're out of integrity, so you don't look where you're out of integrity. See, I was someone who had no integrity, so it was complete blind spots to me. I didn't know I had an integrity. And so one of the things I love about hiking is a great filter for discovering due diligence, for doing deals. Here's the reason why. People want to meet with me. What I learned from one of my friends who's a billionaire, he said, Darren, start giving people micro commitments. Here's what micro commitments are. So I take you on a hiking trail, for example, and as we're hiking, we're out for a couple hours. I'll ask you, hey Ron, do you like to read books or listen to podcasts or audiobooks? And like, yeah, okay, great. Listen, if I give you a signed copy of my book today, I sign it. It's less than 100 pages, a very practical book. By when could you read Until I Become? And I'm asking by when. So it's specific, it's measurable, and it's actionable. It's a micro commitment. And you're like, you know what, Darren, I can read this book by Sunday night. Okay, great. By what time? By 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time Zone. Okay, great. Ron, I got a request for you. Would you send me a text message when you complete reading the book by 9 p.m. on Sunday night? Yeah, I'll get that done. Okay, great. Then what I do is I watch and observe to look at, did you just open up, so if you said to me, Darren, I need you to go ahead and I need you to give me a commitment. First thing I'll do is I'll open up my calendar and I'll bring it into existence by putting a structure in place because I have an accountability. I gave my word. Next thing I'll do is I'll take my cell phone and I'll set an alarm on my phone as an audible reminder. So I'm accountable, responsible, disciplined, and focused because I gave my word. And what you learn by one of the big mistakes that I did, in fact, a few years ago, it cost me $400,000 US. I had to write a check for. I had the money, but it cost me $400,000. Is I got involved in a deal with a guy because he had these big audacious goals, and I just got elated and got excited. But I didn't realize that he couldn't follow through on the micro commitments. And if somebody can't consistently follow through on the micro commitments, how are they going to do the big commitments? So if they can't commit to reading 10 pages a day of a good book and then send you a text that they've done it, if they can't show up on time on a hike, like I have people frequently who will meet with me and they're like, yeah, I'm raising money for my real estate deal or some company. And they'll show up, they don't even show up to the hiking trail. And then a week later, they'll send me a LinkedIn message, hey, are you gonna get involved with closing the round? I'm like, wait a second here. You just stepped over the out of integrity that last week you were no-show. You gave me your word. I sent you a calendar invitation by email. You accepted the calendar invitation. It was a beginner's hike. You said you're going to be there. I text you. I sent you a voicemail message and you didn't have a response. And now you want me to write a check? I'm out. Because there's three types of money. There's calm money, cautious money, and nervous money. Always remember that when people are going through discovery or due diligence, whenever you're getting involved in something, look at your money. If you have to write a check, is your money calm, cautious, or nervous? And to me, what I learned when I take people out on hiking is the money goes from being calm to being cautious, sometimes being nervous. Always trust it because behavior never lies. And so I've learned a lot by making mistakes and challenges. And now that I'm in my 50s, I can watch and observe people. And because behavior never lies. So if I go to an event or I'm speaking at a conference or people reach out to me through social media, I can ask a few different questions and give people micro commitments, right? And through the micro commitments, you get to know if people are actually going to keep their word. Because here's something I'll share with you. Years ago, the reason why I was so much out of integrity in my life is because I didn't know the impact on my words. Because what I realized that in business, we hear the words talk is cheap. Let's go a step further. I think most people cheapen their talk because their words have no power. So I'll give you an example, Ron. You're ex-military, right? You're former military?
Yep.
So imagine this. Imagine that if you and I are working on a project together, and if we don't keep our word, they cut our finger off. Now there's some skin in the game. See, there's no consequences to most people, right? Most people, they don't, see, when I give my word to something, like for me doing this podcast with you today, it's in my calendar, it's locked. I give my word that I'll be here, because if not, I imagine my finger's going to get cut off. See, if you will change, everything will change for you. If people just took on the mindset that we're going to cut your finger off if you don't keep your word, people would pay a lot more attention to what they give their word to.
Your ability to speak things into existence
yeah.
is so much more powerful. Not just yours. A human being's ability to speak things in existence comes from their integrity and their ability to have the conversations they need to have. And I've had that mentality since, but even before Landmark, I knew that everything, and I've had this saying, it's something similar to what you just said, and it resonated with me when I'll be honest, I skimmed through the book because I think I got it right after it came out, and I had other stuff going on, so I read through it really quick. But one of the things that hit me is like, okay, him and I must have had, I didn't remember that you'd already done Landmark, because I was like, we had to have had the same thing, because you have that mentality of, I've got this saying that I say, and I've said it on the podcast quite a few times. Everything you have now, everything you've ever had in the past, everything you ever want to have in the future is in direct correlations to conversations you've
Absolutely.
either had, should have, or have been avoiding having, right? It's all done in that. It's all done in conversations. And the second part of that is the conversations build relationships,
Absolutely.
right? And like I told you right before we hit the record button, if I do a course ever, if I ever do it, like I used to teach real estate investing, but if I do a course, it's going to be on rapport building and the ability to actively listen and build rapport with other human beings. I think that's a missing, and it's so critical in the merger and acquisition space. It's so critical in sales. It's so critical in everything else, is to truly just be able to sit with somebody, truly hear what they say, have them feel heard and acknowledged, and then take the conversation wherever it needs to go, as opposed to any agenda you had or they had. Yeah, so that's an incredible set. And then the second back after that is to be able to acknowledge other human beings for what they need to be acknowledged for is extremely powerful.
Absolutely. I was on a coaching call the other day with a Landmark forum leader, and he said to me, I said, what's something I can go to work on in my life that you see? He said, I want you to practice listening from nothing. And I'm like, wow. He said, just come into a conversation and listen from nothing. Like when I came in here today, I came in from a place of listening from absolutely nothing. No agenda, just listening from nothing, and just organically, authentically, and vulnerably and transparently share. And that was my access to power in my life, is that when I started to share authentically and vulnerably what was really going on, because I was great at masterizing compartmentalization in my life. I was all about looking good and not wanting to look bad, right? Image and ego. And when I just started to put all my cards on the table and just be fully transparent with people, and because I used to be embarrassed about, oh my gosh, I was on welfare. Oh my gosh, I got my car repossessed. Oh my gosh, I had an R9 credit rating. Oh my gosh, in my 20s and 30s, I owed a lot of people money. And then when I got to at age 38, when I had that wake up call from that guy who was a Landmark graduate, and he confronted me, and I wanted to be right, but my life wasn't working. And then I took the Landmark forum, and then all of a sudden, wow, things started to change. And I got into the advanced program, the communication programs, and then more of the advanced programs. And then all of a sudden I started to realize my past of how I was living was powerful. And that was a transformation. And then Jim Rohn always said, if you will change, everything will change for you. And so it was powerful training. And so, yeah, I'm grateful for Landmark. If people want to learn about that, go to landmarkworldwide.com. It's powerful training development. I've invested $1.6 million into personal development training in the last 30 years. And Landmark, I've spent the least amount of $28,000 in Landmark since 2003. But Landmark has given me the greatest financial return on investment my whole life.
Yeah, they way undercharge what they do. The courses are all, let's step back into, you're creating a roll-up of accounting, CPA, tax advisors and stuff. What had you choose that industry? So let's just jump right into because that's a prime industry for this. And a lot of people may or may not get that.
So a few things. The reason why I got into with smashing numbers. So within the Darren Jack group of companies, we were spending 6 figures a year on bookkeeping, accounting, and tax planning services with a group of companies. And one of my team meetings with Tatiana, my partner in life and in business, I said to Tatiana, you know what? We should probably like a family office. We should bring this in-house. Like, what would it cost to hire our own CPA, bring him or her in-house? What would it cost to bring in a team of bookkeepers in-house and do this in person or virtually? So I'll tell you an interesting story. So in 1995, I brought the Tony Robbins or Anthony Robbins Foundation to Canada. And I ran it from 1995 to the year 2000, the same time I was in Toastmasters Dale Carnegie. And because I didn't have any money to take Tony Robbins programs in the beginning, so I was a volunteer coordinator for 5 years for Tony's programs. And that's how I got introduced to Tony's world. I knew of a guy named Carl Gould. And Carl Gould was, people can research him or Google him. He's from New Jersey, is where he lives. And Carl is somebody who was on my radar for many years. And Carl was very instrumental behind Tony Robbins for building Tony Robbins' coaching program with over 8,000 certified coaches. and also business mastery of writing some of the content or curriculum for business mastery for Tony Robbins. So Tony Robbins is phenomenal on stage, doing sales and marketing and training development, but you need a team of people behind the scenes who are your architects and your structures and systems and process people, right? So I belong to a private mastermind group called Board of Advisors out of Florida, out of Sarasota, Florida. And almost 10 years ago, Carl Gould walks into this private invitational mastermind group. There's about 130 members. We're paying a lot of money to be in this group every year. And that night, we're going to different restaurants for dinner, and there's assigned seating. So I go, and Carl Gould sits down beside me. And there's 130 members in this group from across North America. I thought, what are the odds? Between Canada and the United States, all the population, plus 130 people in this room. So we got talking, and myself being on the board of directors of EXP World Holdings for the 10 years, Deloitte's doing our audit team, and I'm seeing the money we're paying for that. And so a lot of private real estate agents are approaching me over the last decade because 57% of real estate agents don't pay their taxes on time. Right? And so I had all these private conversations with all these real estate agents within EXP Realty and other real estate companies across North America through my corporate training background. And so Carl and I got collaborating, and we looked at the bookkeeping, accounting, tax planning industry in North America, that the average age of a CPA right now is 62 years of age. They're a baby boomer. And between now and the year 2030, you got about 100,000 licensed CPAs just in the United States of America are set to retire as baby boomers. And so we thought, what if we could just go out and start to acquire these mom and pop bookkeeping, accounting, tax planning firms off market and roll them up into our company, Smashing Numbers, and we'll build an international bookkeeping, accounting, tax planning firm. Because I was always, every month, I was making text message, email introductions to bookkeepers, accountants, tax planners across North America because of these real estate agents, and people come to me all the time at conferences and conventions. And I thought, why don't I just set up a company? So Carl Gould, Tetienne, and I have a company called Smashing Numbers, and we've been doing very well. And we're doing a total of 22 more acquisitions to roll it up to $50 million a year in annual recurring revenue with ancillary services. And so we've been doing great. Through my network, Carl's network, and with Tetienne's organizational skills, we're just crushing it right now in terms of growing and scaling.
It's awesome. It's awesome. A lot of people don't get that there's difference between a book, especially on young entrepreneurs, even straight out of college. They don't realize there's a huge difference between a CPA firm, a bookkeeping firm, and a tax advising firm.
Correct.
And they have different skill sets, different.
Yes.
They fill different needs in organizations and stuff.
They do.
And a lot of people, I have people all the time, in the small to medium business, acquisitions world. Well, cool, I'm gonna go get a CPA. I was like, what for? Right? What do you mean what for? And it's like, your company's doing less than $1 million a year. You need a good tax advisor. You need a good bookkeeper. But what is the CPA going to do? And, because CPA is kind of a high-level advice, strategic advice. I was like, you need a fractional one. You need somebody to look at you need somebody to look at it and make sure the books are where you want them to be and stuff. But you're not going to really go out and hire. I don't care if you're making $5 million a year. You're probably not going to hire a full-time CPA and keep them actively engaged, right? So the roll-up, the reason I brought that up is the roll-up you're doing right now, is it a combination of all three? You're going to have all those services underneath roof? Or is it
Correct,
one more
yes.
than another?
So what we do is we buy like bookkeeping, accounting, tax planning firms. We've got multiple offers right now. Mm-hmm. So once we roll them up, there's a transition planning process with Smashing Numbers. Mm-hmm. And then what we do is, with Carl Gould's background with 7-stage growth advisors, he's got an international company. He's been around for many years, very successful. We then introduce business consulting, business coaching to Smashing Numbers. We do wills, estate planning. We've got people as an ancillary service for that. So basically, if you imagine like a Walmart, Smashing Numbers is a one-stop shop, because what happens is a lot of accountants or CPAs are always referring and sourcing people to go places. Hey, my buddy's in the Rotary Club here, Women in Business, or Chamber of Commerce. So with Smashing Numbers, everything is under one roof. And then what we do is at the end of each year, virtually on Zoom video, we do a annual performance review. So imagine a small business owner who doesn't have much money actually gets a coach on a call to actually go through and look at a year in review. Here's your year in review. Here's your performance review of a year in review. And then we'll show you where there's efficiencies and deficiencies in your life and where there's blind spots. And then maybe that you need to start, you're coming into more money in your business, or you want to sell your business. So we really take care of you on the journey through your journey with us as a business owner or as an entrepreneur. And we've had huge success with Smashing Numbers. It's been great because we're entrepreneurs that hire employees to run the day-to-day operations, but we understand the problems that business owners and entrepreneurs are solving for all the time. We understand, listen, I understand what it's like to get chased by the government owing taxes. I went 9 years ago without paying taxes until I had 2 federal agents show up at my doorstep. This is 20 plus years ago. Showed up at my doorstep and knocked on my door and said, if you don't start paying taxes, we're going to put you in jail. Because I was all this anti-government stuff years ago. I had a real negative attitude, and and I was scared and come from fear and all that stuff. And I've changed my life now, right, in terms of integrity and who I operate as a human being. But man, in my younger days, I was a wild animal. And so yeah, we've done a lot of great things. So a lot of experience between the three of us, between Tatiana and Carl and I, to really build an incredible organization and a culture that really thrives, but also takes care of the client.
The industry is really fragmented, and one of the things that, if you look at, like, just pick one out, the bookkeeping industry. When I first looked at that, when we were picking ideas for things to do roll-ups in, I was really worried about the whole moat thing, because anybody can go out and take a couple, a community college courses and be quote unquote a bookkeeper, right? Yep. I've got three or four personal family friends I know that are bookkeepers, and they have multiple clients, and they work from home, and they make enough money that they're doing okay with it. That said, that doesn't scale in the fact that it's very fragmented. All three of those are single person operating companies. They're never going to be able to sell those companies. So you've got a lot of that in the industry, in the bookkeeping industry. You got a lot of even the fractional CFO space. You got a lot of one person shops. But then you got all the way up to the Deloittes of the world, right? But I was thinking, I was set back by, when I did the numbers, there are extremely a lot more 10 to 50 to 100, even 100-person firms out there than I ever thought there would be. It's extremely fragmented, but it's not as, I always kind of thought it was either you're a mom and pop shop or you're big. And it's a very diverse scale of, different size companies. And the moat is not intellectual property. The moat isn't like they have something unique they take to the market. The moat, in my view anyway, the moat is, once you're worth a CPA firm or a bookkeeping firm, it's really hard to switch over. It's a lot of, like, once you got up running with them, it takes a lot to pull the plug, and like, you're not going to go, okay, I want McDonald's today, and I don't want to eat healthy today. You're not going to go from bookkeeping firm to bookkeeping firm because somebody offered you a lower deal. It's not a commodity, because the moat is it's difficult to change.
Well, the data shows right now in North America, the average client will stay with a CPA for 17 years. I've only had 2 CPAs in my life. The first one died, and I'm on my second one now, and I've had him for almost 20 years. In fact, we're going to be buying his firm. He's 75 years of age, right, my accountant. I've had him for almost 20 years. And when he's retiring, we have right of refusal to make an offer on his firm to acquire it for Smashing Numbers.
So that's the moat inside of this business. If anybody's out there thinking about doing roll-ups and stuff like that, like, why would you do that? There's no moat. There's no barrier to entry. Like, there's no barrier to entry there, but there's definitely a barrier to change.
Well, and something to consider is it's easier to acquire revenue than to create revenue. You can grow and scale in 12 to 18 to 24 months from one entity to a 7-figure business through acquisition.
Oh, definitely.
Because it's easier to acquire the revenue than to create revenue. Just like hair salons or veterinarian clinics or dental offices, whatever it is, you go out and start acquiring them and roll them up into one company. Like, so for example, we have a company called Profit, one of our accounting firms, and we did an acquisition a couple of years ago with Smashing Numbers. We acquired that firm, and when I was telling people Profit, people were like, what is Profit? But then I started saying Smashing Numbers, they're like, wow, I like Smashing Numbers. I want to smash my numbers in business. Right. In fact, just recently over the holidays, I was getting people that were sending me things like, "Hey, just want to let you know, had a great new year. I'm smashing my numbers this year," and so it becomes a joke now. So we acquired Smashing Numbers, but I wanted to have that digital real estate at smashingnumbers.com. And but there's many things you can do. Plus, also when it comes to due diligence, like remember, all of our clients, we have all the data on everybody. So we can look at opportunities as well. And so sometimes as an investor, somebody comes in looking to raise money. Well, we already know their numbers. We already know their history and experience and past performance. So we can mitigate in regards to saying, yeah, this is something we'd like to invest in or get involved in.
It's interesting. I tell people all the time when they ask how to source leads for merger and acquisition deals, I tell them to reach out to the bookkeepers, the accountants, and the tax advisors, because that's usually going to be one of the first people to know that the owner intends on selling. Because he'll start telling, a business owner will start telling the bookkeeper, the accounting firm, and stuff like that, hey, I'm thinking about selling this thing, way before they tell anybody else, maybe before they tell their own spouse, right?
Yep.
So, because they want to have a full picture of what to tell the spouse, so they go to those advisors and get the advice and start structuring things so that they can do it.
Yep.
So you're in once you have, as you build this, you're also in a unique advantage of looking at other opportunities as the clients want to retire and stuff.
Yeah, and the key thing is building a high performance team, right? Like one of the things I talk about in my book, Until I Become, is that most of your goals and dreams don't require your actions. I've got over 7,000 written goals for my life, and I work in 5-year increments as well. So back in 2020, I wrote down where I wanted my life to be by 2025. And over the last while, I've been reflecting on the year 2020, and I've achieved every goal that I set back in 2020. Now that we're in 2025, I'm looking at where do I want my life, especially in 2030, right? And so I'm looking at where do I want to have in terms of assets under management portfolio in 2030. Where do I want Smash numbers to be? Where do I want the Darren Jack Group companies to be? How many schools do we want to have through Link Foundation around the world? How many people's lives are we enriching through mental health awareness and physical fitness with Take Hike Build a School? So I'm always looking at what do I want to do with my physical body? How much energy do I want? I was at the gym the other day and I met a guy who was 87 years old lifting weights at age 87. I'm thinking, man, when I'm 87, I want to be able to do that and have that energy and vitality that this guy's got.
Yeah, that's impressive. I'm 53 and I stopped going to the gym a while ago. I need to get back in there. I say I'm 53. I'll be 53 in a few weeks. Tell us a lot about, or tell us more about your experience in, getting these. I want to get. How do I put this? These micro commitments you have. Do you do that inside of the company too? I mean, it sounds like a great process in the hiring process too.
For promotions, yes.
Right.
If you want promotions or raises, absolutely, because it's all about empowering people. It's about creating a culture and creating an environment where your employees don't fear you, but they feel empowered and enriched to come to work.
Yep.
Right? We want our employees to come to work where when they go home, they've got energy for their family or for their children. Not going to work and say, I hate working here. We want people to have a great time because you're going to spend more time working with your coworkers and your team members than you will at home with your loved ones. Unless you're working virtually from home. We have some people who work virtually from home within our companies. But we want to enrich people's lives. So it's so important with that. Absolutely. So we do give micro commitments, but also too is I have a lot of people looking for jobs and career changes all the time. So I have a lot of people approaching me all the time looking for work and opportunities. And so what I do is I give them micro commitments. So we hire slow, fire fast.
Right.
And so I've learned to take your time and not just, oh my gosh, we need to fill a position. We need a human being to fill the position. No, pump the brakes. Let's take our time to fill this position. So what we do is I always look at talent ahead of time. So what I'm doing is I'm always building the network of people before I need them.
It's important to kind of get it. You have that vision or that mindset of what's coming down the pipe and who are we going to need to help fulfill the team and to round the team off. Are you working anywhere in the M&A space? How do you see that? I'm sorry, in the AI space, the artificial intelligence space?
So I use AI all the time. ChatGTP. I'm also an investor in an AI company out of Boca Raton, Florida that deals with call centers. I use AI every day for scenario planning and risk mitigation. So what I'm looking at all the time is what's best case scenario, what's likely case scenario, what's worst case scenario. So I'm always scenario planning with our group of companies, with our real estate. So I use AI all the time. I also use it for negotiations. I scenario plan best case, likely case, worst case scenario. Objections all the time. Also forecasting, projecting all the time with AI. And then I'm also looking at how do we become more efficient, more effective, more profitable, and more successful. So I use AI all the time in terms of a lot of it's scenario planning. Yeah. And planning how, what I'm always thinking about what, just so like if you look at it like an airline pilot, I'm always thinking the airline pilot, when you're flying on a commercial plane, right, or a private jet, the pilots are not flying the plane. It's done by autopilot. They're there in case something goes wrong. So what I use ChatGTP for and AI is I look at what are all the possible things that can go wrong in this deal, in this opportunity, in this acquisition, in this transition planning process. And then I have AI give me feedback in all the worst case scenario situations. So then I can create contingency plans for that.
Where I'm going with this is, though, you're acquiring 25 up to 25
Yes.
bookkeeping, tax advisor, that type of company. Those have historically been highly skilled, very knowledgeable CPA
Yes.
certified tax. People have studied the tax code, and I don't even know how big the U.S. tax code is this day, but I'm imagining it's a document that's at least a foot thick. It probably 1,800 pages or more. You can hand something like that to a trained AI, and it could rip through it in minutes, as opposed to what it would take a normal guy a few years. What they say, it takes 10,000 hours to become an expert.
Yeah.
I think with the tools that are out there these days, it takes ChatGPT 10 minutes, to
Oh
do the
yeah.
10,000 hours, maybe 2 minutes to do the 10,000 hours. Where do you see that? Do you see any risk in your scenario where you've got 25 accounting firms, and all of a sudden AI can take and say that 25 accounting firms has 1,000 employees total, right? I'm just guessing, but is there a world where those 1,000 employees are just redundant because of the technology now?
So AI will enhance as a tool the accounting, bookkeeping, tax planning industry, but will not replace human beings because of compliance. But also, if you look at when it comes to compliance, who makes the rules? Accountants and lawyers. And if you look at their personality style, they don't like risk and they don't like change. We're in 2025 right now. You can actually fax the IRS in 2025. Same in Canada, the Canada Revenue, the CRA, you can actually fax them. They don't accept email in 2025, right? So they're very slow to change. Government is very slow to change. And so people say, is AI going to disrupt it? I say it's going to enhance it by being a tool, right? So with our marketing, the way we do things in terms of speed and execution, because we deal with a lot of business owners, a lot of entrepreneurs within Smashing Numbers, and from all different industries. And some of the people we deal with are commission-based or performance-based. And as you know, time kills deals. So if you have your traditional accounting firm that's worked Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 4:30 or 9 to 5, right? Those traditional working hours, and you're a commission salesperson trying to sell a farm or a commercial building over a weekend, well, that 72 hours can kill a deal, right? So the thing is that we focus on speed and execution. So while our employees are working here in the United States of America or in Canada, sometimes we will have offshore people working to help as a collaborative team to make things happen. Because time is money to these business owners, and it's about speed and execution.
So where do you feel that in this accounting, bookkeeping, and CPA realm that it is so unique that it would require a human being, as opposed to what's coming through right now in the AI realm? Right now, we're just looking. When I say AI right now, everybody thinks about ChatGPT. What I'm more referring to is the current, like just in the last few weeks, they've got some agents coming out. There's some ability to where it can interact and be multimodal. As the security around that is nailed down, that's their biggest concern right now. The reason they haven't opened up and released a lot of this stuff, in my mind, is they just can't secure it. It's
Correct.
You can manipulate the AI to do things it doesn't think and it shouldn't do, right? It's trained not to do it, but there's just too many ways to manipulate it to make it do things you're not supposed to. Once they nail that down, the agent, the time frame of agents where the AI can do actionable functions for human beings, I'm still uncertain that there's a lot of industries out there where I'm not sure that the agent couldn't outperform the average human being.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, for sure. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I absolutely agree. And we'll see how that all plays out over the next coming months and coming years as well.
Yeah.
Right? It's important. I love having human beings work with us.
Yeah.
I love creating teams and creating culture and creating that environment. And I'm also about efficiency and also about structure, systems, and processes. But I'm also a big believer in creating teams, of high performance teams. And also, if we can use technology and AI to enhance people's work experience so they don't have to do the small tasks, things that elevate their thinking and their mindset, I'm all for that as well.
Awesome. Well, we're running out of time, or we're actually officially a minute over now. So let's do this real quick. How do people reach out to you? How do they work with you? How do they go on a hike for you? Where do they find the book? I mean, what's the best way to get to know
Yeah.
you a bit better and maybe have a chance of working with you?
The book, this is the book here. You can go to Amazon, just order it off Amazon. It gets distributed all over the world with Amazon. This book is in over 100 countries now on 6 continents. It's not a book that people read. It's less than 100 pages. People are studying it. This is books in colleges, universities, a lot of business owners all around the world, so it's in over 100 countries. If they want to reach out to me, just go to darrenjacklin.com, darrenjacklin.com. And if you want to come out and take a hike to build a school, go to hikingfundraiser.com, hikingfundraiser.com.
And the book is Until I Become. So for those of you guys that are driving and not watching this on YouTube, it's Until I Become by Darren Jacklin. So thank you today. We'll wrap that up. We'll call it a show and hang out for just a second. This episode of How to Exit is brought to you by Final Ascent, the boutique M&A firm helping lower middle market business owners achieve their ultimate exit. At Final Ascent, they know selling your business is one of the biggest decisions you'll ever make, and they've been in your shoes. Their team isn't just made of advisors. They're experienced business owners who have successfully navigated their own exits. Final Ascent specializes in preparing businesses for sale, building value, and connecting with a national network of qualified buyers who will compete for your business. They don't take on a client unless they're confident they can sell your business at the current market maximum value. Whether you're ready to sell now or planning for the future, they'll craft a roadmap tailored to your unique goals so that you can walk away with maximum value and a peace of mind. Start your journey today at Final Ascent. That's www.finalascent.com, because your next chapter starts with a successful exit.